The last stand, the battlefield was covered in smoke and fire. The sound of gunshots and explosions filled the air. Dead bodies of both humans and aliens lay everywhere. The war between humans and the alien race called the Zarkari had been going on for years. Both sides hated each other. Both sides wanted to win. In the middle of the battlefield stood Zalara, a proud Zarkari warrior. She was tall, strong, and fearless. Her purple skin was marked with battle scars, showing her strength. She led her squad with honor, fighting the humans without fear. Her people called her the Blade of Zarkar, the strongest female warrior of their kind. But that day, things went wrong. A hidden human artillery fired heavy bombs on her squad. The ground shook, and her soldiers screamed as they were torn apart. Zalara tried to escape, but the explosion was too close. The blast threw her high into the air, and she landed hard. Pain shot through her body. She looked down and saw something horrible. Both her legs were gone, torn off by the blast. She screamed, but no help came. Her squad was dead, and the other Zarkari soldiers were retreating. She tried to crawl, but the blood loss made her weak. Her vision became blurry, and the world spun around her. Then she heard footsteps. She looked up, thinking it was her people coming to save her. But it was a group of Zarkari scouts. They looked at her with pity. She has lost her legs. She will not survive, one of them said coldly. She is already dead, another said. Without another word, they turned and left. They left their great warrior to die alone. Zalara felt rage and sadness. She was the Blade of Zarkar, the strongest warrior, and now she was nothing but a broken body on the dirt. Time passed, and the battlefield became quiet. Zalara felt cold, her body weak, her mind fading, but then she heard footsteps again. She prepared herself to die, thinking it was a human soldier coming to finish her. But what she saw confused her. It was a human, but he didn't point a gun at her. He was a tall man with rough skin, wearing the uniform of the human Marines. He had dark hair, a scar on his cheek, and tired eyes. His name was Jack Carter. Jack looked down at her, his face serious. Zalara stared back, ready for death. But Jack didn't shoot. Instead, he knelt beside her and checked her wounds. He spoke softly. "You're losing too much blood." Zalara didn't understand his words fully, but she felt his tone. Jack pulled out a small med kit from his bag. He began bandaging her wounds, stopping the bleeding. Zalara wanted to resist, but she was too weak. Why was he helping her? She was his enemy. Jack worked quickly, his hands skilled. He spoke again. "I can't leave you like this. Even if you're an alien, I won't leave you to die." Zalara watched with confusion and anger. Why would a human help her? Were humans not the monsters her people said they were? Was this some trick? But Jack didn't seem like a monster. His face was tired, but his eyes showed no hate. When he finished bandaging her, he sat back inside. "We need to move, soldiers. We'll come soon," he said, mostly to himself. He looked at her legs, or what was left of them. She couldn't walk. She couldn't fight. Jack looked around and started gathering pieces of wood and rope. He was building something, a sled. Zalara wanted to ask him why, but she didn't have the strength to speak. She only watched as the human worked hard, making a sled to carry her away from the battlefield. As night fell, Jack lifted her carefully onto the sled. She winced in pain, but he was gentle. He started pulling the sled, moving away from the dead and the fire. Each step was heavy, but he kept moving. Zalara lay there, staring at the stars. She had been left for dead by her own people, but a human, her enemy, was the one saving her. She didn't understand why, but she knew one thing. She owed him her life. Still, in her heart, she wondered, why would a human save an enemy like her? What did he want in return? And what would happen if other humans found them together? The questions filled her mind as the cold night surrounded them. The war was still far from over, and she knew this was just the beginning of something strange and dangerous. Zalara opened her eyes to darkness. A soft wind touched her face, cold and sharp. For a moment, she thought she was dead. But then the pain in her body reminded her. She was still alive. She was lying in a small shelter made of sticks and leaves. She could smell smoke from a small fire nearby. Her wounds ached, but they were wrapped with care. She turned her head slowly and saw the human. Jack Carter sat by the fire, sharpening a knife. His eyes were fixed on the blade, his face calm but tired. Zalara watched him with silent anger and confusion. Why was he keeping her alive? What was his plan? Her pride screamed inside her. She was a warrior, not a weak creature to be pitied. She tried to sit up, but her body refused to move. She felt useless, like a broken weapon thrown away. Jack noticed her struggling. "You're awake," he said quietly. Zalara growled, showing her sharp teeth. She wanted to attack, to kill him. But without her legs, she was nothing. "You'll rip your wounds open," Jack warned. His voice was not cruel, just firm. "I'm not your enemy right now," he added. "But if you want to die faster, keep moving." Zalara stared at him with hatred. She didn't understand why he wasn't killing her, or why he spoke to her like an ally. Jack stood up and tossed some dry wood onto the fire. He looked down at her and said, "I don't leave people to die, enemy or not. That's not how I was trained." Zalara didn't believe him. Humans were liars, killers, monsters. That's what her people taught her. She wanted to spit in his face, but her throat was too dry. Jack pulled out a small water bottle and offered it to her. She hesitated, staring at it. Was it poisoned? Was it a trap? But her body needed water more than her pride. She drank, slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Jack watched her silently, then nodded. "We're miles from any safe zone," he said. "Both our sides are hunting anything that moves. If we stay here, we both die." Zalara didn't answer. She didn't trust him, but she didn't have a choice. Jack knew it too. That night, Jack built a better sled. He found stronger branches and tied them with wires from his gear. Zalara watched him work. He was skilled, fast, and careful. She hated that she had to depend on him as he worked. The sounds of distant weapons echoed through the night. The war was still going, and the killing hadn't stopped. Suddenly, a sharp sound made them both freeze. Voices, alien voices. Her people's voices were nearby. Zalara's heart raced. Were they coming to rescue her, or to kill her like the scouts did? Jack grabbed his rifle and crouched low. He looked at Zalara and whispered, "Quiet." She understood that word now. She stayed still, her breathing slow. 2 Zarkari soldiers passed by, their weapons raised. They were hunting, searching for survivors or enemies. Jack held his breath, ready to shoot if needed. But then, one soldier stopped. He looked around, sniffing the air like a predator. He muttered something in Zarkari. Zalara caught a few words. "Something's alive. Smell of human." Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. If they found them, it was over. Zalara felt something strange in her chest. Fear. Not for herself, but for the human. If he died, she would be next, helpless. But just then, a loud explosion echoed far away. The soldiers turned and ran toward the sound. Chasing the noise, Jack waited until their voices faded, then sighed. "We can't stay here," he muttered. He looked at Zalara. "If you want to live, you better start trusting me. Even a little." Zalara didn't answer, but deep inside she knew she was trapped with him. Without his help, she would die alone and forgotten. Jack packed his things quickly. He lifted Zalara onto the sled, careful of her wounds. Then he started pulling, his legs heavy with each step. The night was cold, and danger was everywhere, but they moved forward. 2 enemies now tied by survival. As Zalara watched the back of the human pulling her, she wondered something she never thought before. Maybe not all humans were monsters. But if that was true, what did that make her? The question burned in her mind, and in the darkness ahead, new dangers waited for both of them. The night was endless. The stars above were cold and silent, but the ground below was alive with death. Jack Carter pulled the sled slowly. His back ached, his muscles burned. Yet he didn't stop. On that sled lay Zalara, the alien warrior, once proud, now broken. Every sound in the dark made Jack tighten his grip on his rifle. There were footsteps far away, voices, gunfire, strange screams. Both humans and Zarkari were nearby, hunting anything that lived. Zalara watched Jack silently. Her body was weak, her wounds still raw. But her mind was sharp. She studied the human, his heavy steps, his tired breath. Yet he kept going. She couldn't understand it. Why would an enemy risk his life for her? Back on her homeworld, weakness meant death. If she had found a wounded human, she would have ended him without mercy. Yet here she was, alive because of this stubborn Marine. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed, a human patrol, shouting and firing. Jack stopped and pressed himself against a rock. He pulled the sled behind the cover, breathing hard. Zalara could see the fear in his eyes, but also something else, focus. This was a soldier who had survived many battles. The human voices were getting closer. Jack whispered to Zalara, "If they find us, they'll kill you. And me for helping you." Zalara looked at him. She felt anger, shame, and something she didn't want to admit. Fear. She was helpless, a warrior trapped in a broken body. Jack made a quick decision. He took mud and smeared it on their clothes and faces. "Hide the smell, hide the heat," he muttered. Zalara didn't resist. She let him work, her pride silent now. Moments later, human soldiers appeared. They wore heavy armor, their helmets glowing in the dark. One of them scanned the area with a heat detector. Jack and Zalara stayed still, barely breathing. The scanner beeped once. The soldier paused, looking around. Jack's heart pounded. His finger hovered near his trigger. But if he shot, they would both die. The soldier shrugged and moved on. "They're probably dead already," the soldier said to his team. The humans left, their footsteps fading into the dark. Jack exhaled, wiping sweat from his face. "That was too close," he whispered. Zalara stared at him. "You hide well for a loud species," she said weakly, her voice rough but curious. Jack looked at her and chuckled. "You talk now?" She didn't answer, but something changed between them. For the first time, they weren't just enemies. They were survivors. They moved again, deeper into the wilderness. The terrain became rocky and harsh. Jack's steps slowed, his strength fading, but he didn't stop. Zalara watched him fight his own limits. She remembered her own warriors, strong, proud, but none of them would have done what this human did. They would have left her, like the scouts did. A memory flashed in her mind, her people abandoning her, calling her dead, useless. Her fists clenched. She hated that memory. As dawn approached, they reached a hidden cave. Jack dragged the sled inside and collapsed on the ground, his breath heavy, his body shaking. Zalara looked around. The cave was dark, but safe, for now. Jack pulled out a small piece of bread from his pack and handed half to her. She stared at it. "You feed your enemies?" she asked. Jack smiled weakly. "Right now, you're not my enemy," he said. "You're my responsibility." Zalara took the bread and ate slowly. It tasted dry, but it gave her strength. Then she asked the question burning inside her, "Why? Why do you help me?" Jack looked at her with tired eyes. "Because I don't leave people to die," he said simply. "That's not who I am." Silence filled the cave. For the first time, Zalara didn't know what to say. But outside the cave, danger was still close. Both human and Zarkari patrols were sweeping the area, looking for survivors, enemies or trophies. Jack knew this peace wouldn't last. He had saved an alien warrior, but now they were hunted by both sides. In the dark cave, Zalara watched the human rest, her enemy, her savior, and she wondered, in this cruel war, was he the only creature who still remembered mercy? The thought scared her more than death. The cave was cold and dark. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing like distant footsteps. Jack sat near the entrance, his rifle resting on his knees. His eyes stayed sharp, watching the shadows outside. Sleep was dangerous here. Zalara lay further inside. Wrapped in a dirty blanket, she couldn't feel her legs because they were gone. Every time she moved, she felt the empty space where her strength used to be. A warrior without legs was nothing, yet she was still alive because of him, the human, Jack Carter. Zalara watched him from the dark, his eyes never closed. His hands always near his weapon. He was alert like a hunter surrounded by wolves. Even now, he protected her, an enemy. She didn't understand it. No Zarkari would do this for a human. They would kill them or leave them to die slowly. Mercy was weakness, but this human showed mercy, again and again, suddenly. Jack's body tensed. He raised his hand, signaling for silence. Zalara listened carefully. There were voices, soft but clear, approaching the cave. Jack moved quietly to the entrance. Peeking out, it was a Zarkari patrol. 3 soldiers, their armor shining slightly under the morning light. They carried rifles and scanners. Searching the rocks, Jack's grip on his weapon tightened. He whispered to Zalara, 3 of your people, armed. We stay quiet, they might pass. Zalara's heart raced. What if they found her? Would they help her or finish her like the scouts did? One of the Zarkari soldiers stopped. He scanned the area, his device beeping softly. There's heat inside the cave, he said. The others raised their weapons. Could be a human. One muttered, or a wounded beast. Another joked. They stepped closer, weapons ready. Jack looked back at Zalara. He whispered, if they find us, I'll fight. But I can't fight all 3. His face was calm, but his eyes were ready for death. Zalara hated this feeling. Trapped, weak, helpless. She clenched her fists. Her warrior pride burning. She had to help, but how? Jack set up a quick trap, a thin wire connected to a grenade, hidden under some rocks. If they come in, I'll trigger it, he said. We run after. Zalara stared at him. I can't run, she said bitterly. Jack smiled faintly. Then, I'll carry you. The soldiers came closer, their footsteps loud now. Jack aimed his rifle, breathing slow, but then, a distant explosion shook the ground. A human airstrike, far but loud. The soldiers paused, distracted. One of them said, we need to check that first. Reluctantly, they turned away from the cave, running toward the new danger. Jack sighed deeply, lowering his weapon. Lucky. He muttered, but he knew luck wouldn't save them twice. He returned to Zalara, his face serious. We need to move now, he said. They'll be back. Zalara nodded. She didn't argue anymore. She knew he was right. Jack packed quickly, checking his gear. He lifted Zalara gently onto the sled. She gritted her teeth. She hated feeling so weak, but she said nothing. As they left the cave, the sun was rising. The land was dangerous in daylight, but staying meant death. Jack pulled the sled with all his strength. Every hill, every stone made the journey harder. Zalara watched his back. His uniform was torn, his hands bleeding from the rough rope. Yet he didn't stop. Why do you keep doing this? She asked suddenly. Jack didn't turn. Because I promised myself, he said, I won't leave anyone behind, even an enemy? She asked. Jack shrugged. War doesn't matter when you see someone bleeding to death. His words stayed in her mind. She had killed many humans, without mercy, without thought. Yet this human saved her. Fed her, carried her. Why? Suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air. Jack froze. Dropships, human and Zarkari, flying low. Scanning the ground. If either side spotted them, they were dead. Jack pulled the sled into a dried-up riverbed, covering them with branches and dirt. They hid, barely breathing, as the ships passed overhead. The engines roared like angry beasts. But then, silence returned. Jack looked up at the sky. We're running out of time, he said. We need to find real shelter. Or we're both dead. Zalara looked at him. She realized something strange. She wasn't just afraid of dying. She was afraid of him dying, because if Jack died, there would be no one left to remember. She was more than just a broken warrior. No one to remember she was still alive. As the sun climbed higher, they moved again, hunted by both sides, 2 enemies. Now bound by survival, and the question still burned between them. When this was over, would they still be enemies? The sun burned in the sky. The ground was dry and cracked. The air felt heavy with heat and death. Jack pulled the sled slowly, his body shaking with every step. His clothes were soaked with sweat, his skin burned by the sun. But he kept going. Because behind him on that sled, Zalara watched, silent and broken, every time Jack stumbled. He caught himself. Every time his knees buckled, he stood again. Zalara wanted to close her eyes, to not see his struggle, but she couldn't, because deep inside her warrior heart, she felt something she hated. Guilt. She was the blade of Zarkar. She was supposed to be strong, proud, fearless, but now she was cargo, dead weight, and her enemy, a human, was the only reason she was still breathing. When the sun began to fall, Jack collapsed. His body hit the dirt hard, his breathing loud and broken. He didn't move. Zalara's chest tightened. She called out, her voice weak but sharp. "Human." "Jack." No answer. She tried to sit up, dragging herself off the sled. Her body screamed in pain, her stumps aching, but she didn't stop. She pulled herself across the dirt, inch by inch. She reached him, turned him over. His face was pale, his lips dry. She touched his neck, his heart still beat. But weakly, Zalara looked around. Rocks, dirt, dead trees, no water, no food, nothing. She clenched her fists. She was Arkari. She was a warrior. She couldn't let her savior die. Like this, she remembered the old teachings. The survival skills drilled into every warrior. There must be water somewhere, she crawled, dragging her useless legs behind her. Every movement sent fire through her body. But she kept going. She saw a cluster of dry bushes, sometimes beneath them there was damp soil. She clawed the dirt, digging deep. Her fingers bled, her body shook. But then, moisture mud, sticky and wet, not clean, but it was life. She ripped a piece of her clothing, soaked it in the mud, then crawled back to Jack. She pressed the cloth to his lips. "Drink, you stubborn fool." She growled slowly. He swallowed. She repeated this again and again. Mud, water, back to Jack, until his eyes fluttered open. His voice was a whisper. "You're helping me?" Zalara snorted. "I don't let my rescuer die before me," she said. "That would shame my name." Jack smiled weakly. "Pride, huh?" She nodded. "Pride, warrior code, call it what you want." Jack laughed softly. "You're not so scary when you're saving lives." She scowled, but her eyes betrayed her, a small light of respect. Jack sat up slowly, his strength returning. He looked at her, crawling, bloodied and dirty. "You dragged yourself just to help me." She looked away. "Don't misunderstand, human," she said. "You're still my enemy, but I don't leave debts unpaid." Jack chuckled. "Noted," he said. "Still thanks." Night came, bringing cold winds. They sat close to a small fire Jack managed to start. They shared dry rations, barely enough for one person, yet they split it. One human, one alien. Both warriors, both broken. Then they heard it, a sound unlike any before, a deep, earth-shaking growl. The ground vibrated. Something big was coming. Jack grabbed his rifle, eyes scanning the dark. Zalara tensed, her senses sharp. Then it appeared, a massive alien beast. Taller than trees, its eyes glowed red, its teeth like swords. Jack cursed. "We can't fight that," he said. Zalara stared at the beast, her warrior blood boiling. "If we run, it eats us," she said. "If we fight, we die," Jack replied. She smirked. "Then let's make it hurt before we die." The human and the alien looked at each other. Two enemies, now two warriors preparing for one last fight. The beast roared, shaking the night, and both of them, wounded, weak, yet proud, stood together to face it, because if death was coming, they would meet it like warriors. The ground shook with every step the beast took. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. Its breath was hot, steaming in the cold night air. Jack stood with his rifle raised, but he knew bullets wouldn't be enough. The creature was armored with thick scales, harder than any metal. It was a nightmare born from some alien world. Beside him, Zalara dragged herself upright. She had no legs, yet her eyes burned with defiance. Her hands gripped a sharp rock, the only weapon she had. The beast roared, its voice echoing across the land. Jack aimed and fired. Each bullet struck, but the beast barely noticed. It moved faster, rushing toward them like a living tank. Jack shouted, "Get back!" But Zalara didn't move. She watched the beast's movements, reading its rhythm. Then she saw it. The eyes, glowing but unprotected. "Shoot the eyes!" She yelled. Jack heard her, adjusted his aim. He fired again, this time at the eyes. One bullet struck true. The beast roared in pain, shaking its head violently. But it wasn't enough. The creature lunged forward, slamming into the ground. Jack was thrown back, his rifle sliding away. His chest burned, his breath knocked out. Zalara didn't hesitate. She pulled herself forward with her arms, crawling with fierce speed. She grabbed a broken branch, sharp and jagged, with a warrior's scream. She drove it into the beast's wounded eye. The beast screamed, thrashing wildly. It tried to shake her off, but she held on. Its massive claw swung, striking her side, sending her flying. She hit the ground hard. Coughing blood, Jack saw her fall, rage filling his heart. He grabbed his last grenade from his belt. He ran, ignoring the pain, and jumped onto the beast's back. With one hand, he pulled the grenade's pin. With the other, he shoved the explosive deep between the beast's neck scales. Then he jumped off, rolling on the ground. The grenade exploded, a deep boom that split the air. The beast staggered, its neck bleeding. It howled, then collapsed with a heavy thud, the earth shaking beneath it. Silence returned, dust settled. The beast was dead. Jack crawled to Zalara, who lay coughing, her purple skin bruised and bleeding. "Hey," he said softly. "Stay with me." Zalara opened her eyes. She looked at the dead beast, then at the human. A weak smile touched her lips. "We killed it," she whispered. "Together." Jack chuckled. "Yeah, we did." For a moment, they just sat there. Warriors side by side, not human, not alien, just survivors. Jack wrapped a cloth around Zalara's wounds, his hands gentle. She didn't protest. For the first time, she let him help without anger. "You fight like a true warrior, Zalara." "Sod," Jack smiled. "And you fight like hell without legs." She laughed weakly. "Don't remind me." They rested, the fire crackling softly. Jack looked at her seriously. "You know, they'll both kill us if they find us," he said. "Your people." "My people." "They'll see us as traitors," Zalara nodded. "I know," she said. "But I'd rather die a warrior than a helpless body on a battlefield." Jack looked at the stars. "We need a plan," he said. "Either we keep running, or we find a way to make them see this is bigger than war." Zalara stared at him. "What are you thinking, human?" Jack smirked. "I'm thinking. I'm not leaving you behind." "Not now." Zalara's pride swelled. But this time, it wasn't alone. There was respect, a bond. The bond of warriors, enemies by birth, but brothers and sisters in survival. Above them, the stars watched quietly. And far in the distance, the war still raged. But here, in the shadow of a dead beast, a human and a Zarkaririer had found something rare: honor. The morning sky was gray. Clouds gathered like silent watchers. Jack Carter stood on a hill, looking far into the horizon. His body ached, every muscle worn and bruised. But he didn't care, because lying behind him, wrapped in blankets on the sled, was Zalara, still alive, still breathing, but weaker now. She watched him silently. In her mind, pride still burned. But something stronger had taken root. Trust, not for all humans, but for this one, Jack Carter, the human who refused to leave her behind. They had fought a beast together, survived enemies together, but now came the hardest part. They couldn't hide forever. Their food was gone, their strength fading. Both their armies were searching, and neither side would show mercy. Zalara spoke, her voice low but sharp. What now, human? Run again? Hide again? Jack shook his head. No more running, he said. We'll go to my people. Zalara narrowed her eyes. They will shoot me on sight. Jack turned to her, his eyes steady. Not if I'm with you. She laughed bitterly. You think your people will forgive you for saving me? Jack smiled faintly. No, they won't. But maybe they'll listen. Maybe they'll see this war differently. Zalara stared at the sky. I can't go back to my people. She said, I have no legs, no honor. They'll kill me for being weak. Jack knelt beside her. I'll get you new legs, he said. Human tech. We build them for our wounded soldiers. You'll walk again. She looked at him, unsure if it was hope or foolishness. Why? She asked, why would you do this for me? Jack thought for a moment, then answered, because you didn't let me die when you could have. Because when it mattered, you fought beside me, not as an alien, but as a warrior. His words sat heavy in the air. Zalara looked away, hiding the storm inside her. Finally she nodded. Fine, human, she said. Take me to your people. If they kill me, I'll die with a warrior's pride. Jack smiled. Deal. They set off. Jack pulling the sled again. Each step forward was a gamble. Ahead was danger, distrust, and death. But they had made their choice. Hours later, human soldiers spotted them. Shouts echoed, weapons raised. A human, pulling an alien unthinkable. Jack raised his hands. Don't shoot. He yelled, she's with me. The soldiers hesitated, confused, guns aimed, orders shouted. A higher officer stepped forward, his face cold and sharp. What the hell is this, Marine? The officer demanded, why are you dragging an enemy? Jack stood tall. She saved my life, sir, he said. I'm bringing her in. The officer's eyes narrowed. An enemy is an enemy. Explain yourself, Carter. Jack looked back at Zalara, then faced the officer. It's not that simple anymore, he said. You want answers? You'll want to hear the whole story. The officer stared at them both. The human and the alien. Two warriors who should have killed each other, but didn't. Finally, the officer nodded. Fine, he said. Bring them in. Zalara looked at Jack. Her eyes asked a silent question. Was this the end or the beginning? Jack whispered, let's find out. As soldiers surrounded them, guns still ready, one thing was clear. Their choice had changed everything in a world of war and hate. They had found something rare, a bond, and maybe, just maybe, a new beginning.